I'll tell you a little bit about how it started. I think that's the best way to kind of understand why we exist. Back in 2012, I was actually working on a child welfare conference, and for that conference we decided, as part of the program, that we put together a panel of former foster youth to kind of talk about their experiences in foster care. And I had previously worked out in the community for CASA of Denton County, and I knew of a young lady who a few years prior had gone through the Child Protective Services system and aged out of foster care. And so I thought, well, I'll contact her, because I knew she had come to UNT after she'd aged out, and see if she would be interested in being part of the panel. And once I contacted her, I was really glad to know that her phone number was still the same, her email was still the same. But once I started talking to her, she let me know that she was no longer a student at UNT. And I have to tell you, I felt really sad about that. When she got to UNT, it wasn't the academic rigor that kept her from being successful here on campus. I think there were other things that were happening. I was having a discussion with a graduate assistant who was in my department at the time about how sad I felt that this young lady wasn't able to stay at UNT. And I just, was kind of processing, how could that happen? How could that happen, someone who had such potential? And she said, you know what, I have a friend who wrote this story that's called Why I Don't Want to Be Adopted. And you should meet him and hear his story. And I said, I would love to meet him. Please ask his permission to share his story with me, which she had in an email. And she certainly did that. And I read the story, and it certainly talked about why he didn't want to be adopted. He was adopted at age 8, had been kind of abused in his adoptive home, and came back into foster care. And at age 13, the conversation about adoption recurred, and he was like, I don't want to be adopted. I know what that's about. That's a scary thing. But I did meet with him ultimately, and I asked him if there was some type of a support program at UNT that would help foster care alumni, or people who'd experienced foster care at some point during their childhood, that would support them and help them be successful. Would he want to be a part of that? And he was emphatic about it. And he was like, absolutely, I would want to be a part of that. And so we talked to and found another student who was a foster care alumni, who was part of the social work program at that point, and the three of us went and spoke with the Division of Student Affairs, and they recommended that we start a student organization. And so that student organization is PUSH, an acronym for Persevere Until Success Happens. And that organization was founded by students, and really the original intent was to make sure that any student on our campus who had experienced foster care would have a group that they felt like they had something in common with, and that they would have someone who understood their experiences and where they had been, and that they could reach out to that group. As we started to grow, one of the things that the students wanted to do is they wanted to tell their stories in the community. And I said, well, I come from the child welfare background, and so I know a lot of people, and we can find you venues to tell your story if that's what you want to do. After speaking a few times, what happened was the community really responded to us. And what they did was they started to offer some in-kind types of donations, whether that's like care packages. We got about $14,000 worth of gift cards back in 2014. And so slowly but surely, our student organization started to turn into more of a kind of a programmatic aspect, where we were able to provide more and more support to students. Currently, we have 128 students at the university who receive tuition and fee waivers. And what that basically means is any student who experiences foster care during their childhood, they may have aged out of foster care, they may have been adopted through the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, means that they might be eligible for a full tuition and fee waiver to a state-supported college or university. And they have peers on campus who get it. They get it. They get what they've been through, and they understand kind of what their history is. And I think that's important to students because they don't feel alone while they're here. I think the other aspect of PUSH that's really helpful, not only that peer-to-peer support, but I think it's also very helpful that we've established, myself as the UNT Foster Care Liaison Officer. They have a go-to person on campus where if they're having any type of issue, whether it's financial or housing or personal or relational type of thing, they know they can stop by, have a conversation, and if a referral needs to be made, then we make that referral. We try to do warm handoffs to those referrals so that we make sure the students get the support that they need. That sounds really big. But I have to say anecdotally, and from what some of them have shared with me, that I do think it's the reason that they got through. Many of my PUSH students have gone through the social work program here at UNT. They work at Child Protective Services. I have one of my very first PUSH students who's worked at Dallas CASA. I have one who works for Fort Worth ISD now, and they're social workers, and it's great to see that they are paying it forward in so many ways, and I find that that's important to them. Several years ago, we started having what we like to call our annual PUSH Thanksgiving gathering at my house. And it's important because I know that some students don't have family to go home to at Thanksgiving. And they come to our house and we just have a potluck and hang out. And the house is usually quite full, but it's really great. And we invite PUSH alumni who are also now UNT alumni. They come back and kind of quote unquote come home to spend some time with each other.